felt kind of empty or felt like something was missing in your life. And I have to make a confession here, because at first I didn't really want to watch. Of course, it is connected to a lot of pressure and just expectations we have of ourselves. And first, it is not very human, and second, it's also just not realistic. I mean, knowing one's identity is hard enough, but staying true to this identity is like even harder in my opinion. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jini, and I'm very excited about today's video because that's a topic I love to talk about. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, which are anime, and specifically for this video what I learned from anime and how anime is just so much more than just Japanese cartoons, for me at least. Yeah, so without further ado, let's get started. If you haven't finished watching any of these anime, don't worry, I'll keep it spoiler free so you can still enjoy watching the anime and still watch my videos, so don't worry, I got you. So let's start with an anime that my boyfriend and I just finished watching, which is Attack on Titan. And for context, I first started watching the anime like 7 years ago when I first got to know my boyfriend. So I may be a little bit biased because of that. Yeah, and we just finished watching the last season a few weeks ago, and to be honest, we were quite afraid like of a bad ending. But I can wholeheartedly say that it was a satisfying ending and it tied everything together, for me at least. I know that there may be like different opinions, but for my boyfriend and my boyfriend is a hardcore Attack on Titan fan, we are both quite content with how everything was just ended and tied together. So it was really good and satisfying in my personal opinion. So the biggest life lesson this anime has taught me is definitely that life is very short and that we are very small in this very huge world. And it may sound cryptic to you, but if you've watched the anime, especially the end, you'll know what I mean. Another thing that I really took away from watching the whole anime is that humankind will continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. So it really kind of reminded me of another perspective on not only my own life, but just life, like in general. The anime just really gave me a kind of strange feeling of peace, especially at the end, because no matter how hard life may appear sometimes, it's all just a tiny part of the whole world. And that may sound a little bit depressing, but in my opinion, that realization is a very good thing. It just puts everything into perspective, if that makes sense. Yeah, and sure, sometimes life can be very hard and even unfair. And sure, I can also sit there and be miserable and pity myself, but I can also choose to go on in my life and to take action for my life because no one else will or can, but just not maybe in the Eren Yeager way. Yeah, and then you'll be fine. So let's move on to the next anime I'd like to talk about, which is one of my favorite anime ever, and that is Your Name. I still remember watching the movie for the very first time, and I was like bawling my eyes out in the middle of the night because it was just so emotional, and you know, in the middle of the night everything just hits different. Yeah, good memories. And the life lesson for me from this movie was definitely that we can form bonds with people that go beyond space and time. And I know that is a very romanticized way of looking at love and just relationships we have with other people. But actually, why not? Why not just romanticize things that we can romanticize and things that are harmless? I also think that the movie just really emphasized how everything in the world is like interrelated and just connected somehow. It's probably tied to the Shinto religion that many people in Japan believe in. Even though I'm not part of that religion, I think it's a beautiful thing to believe in, that all things in our world are somehow connected to one another, and also that our choices and also actions can affect our environment and of course also the people around us to a surprising extent. To connect this life lesson with the life lessons I learned from Attack on Titan, sure, our lives are short and we are very tiny in this big world, but we can still have a very big impact onto the lives of the people around us. And you can still be important to people even if you may not believe in it. We can still make an impact in another individual's life. Yeah, I also have to say I just really loved the ending of the movie because I'm sure you probably have at one point in your life felt kind of empty or felt like something was missing in your life. Who knows, maybe it's because you have already gotten to know your soulmate but you just forgot. And maybe you have yet to meet him for the second time and re-find them, so to say. I know I'm just interpreting, but I think it's a beautiful and romantic way to think about this, so why not? And I know I'm getting cheesy here, but I always do when I talk about animes. I think anime really are just so much more than just like normal or regular series. They teach so much about life and so many emotions and just there are so many stories that are like hidden in anime. So let's move on to the next anime, which is My Hero Academia. And I have to make a confession here because at first I didn't really want to watch My Hero Academia just because I didn't really like the art style, and I'm so glad that I didn't let my shallowness keep me from watching it, because wow, this anime had a lot of life lessons for me and a lot of like really touching moments for me. The first thing that comes into my mind is that even if sometimes you feel like you have to do everything on your own, sometimes it's okay to rely on friends and family and to let go of these expectations that you have of yourself. Yeah, and it's okay to let go of that image that you are trying to defend, of that image that you're trying to keep up with. Yeah, and I know it can be very scary, and it was very beautifully depicted in the anime, in my opinion, because of course it is connected to a lot of pressure and just expectations we have of ourselves and the whole identity. But for me personally, I've never been like very fond of characters that are just like perfect and that never make mistakes and that are the strongest, because first, it is not very human, and second, it's also just not realistic. But I've always admired the characters that have flaws, that make mistakes, and that deal with their difficulties in life, but despite all of that, still rise from the misery and make the best, or try to make the best out of what they were given. And yeah, it has really taught me that it's not the mistakes that define a person, but what they make of it and what they learn from it and which way they choose to go from there. Yeah, because we all make mistakes. There's not a single person in this world that does not make mistakes. And in that sense, the anime was just really relatable for me, despite all of the characters, or like most of the characters being heroes. And I think that's what I really liked about it. Let's move on to one of my favorite movies ever, which is Spirited Away, from Studio Ghibli. And yeah, what can I say? Studio Ghibli movies just generally have a lot of wisdom in them. Obviously, they criticize a lot about what's going on in our world and what's wrong with our world, like the war in Howl's Moving Castle, or the relationship between nature and humankind in Princess Mononoke, and much more. And obviously there's just so much to appreciate about the movies. But the biggest life lesson that came into my mind from the movie Spirited Away is that we should never forget who we are. I mean, knowing one's identity is hard enough, but staying true to this identity is like even harder in my opinion. And it's so easy to nowadays just forget about who you are, or like to be distracted from who you are. And I very often just catch myself getting lost in transient things that at the end of the day just really don't matter. And I know that this is human, but I still feel like this is not the way I would like to live my life. And this movie was just really like a hit in your face, like a soft hit with a pillow, you know, to remind me of what is truly important in life. Yeah, I just really love the Ghibli movies because there's just so much to think about even after having watched them. Besides the many messages they convey, they are also just so peaceful. They just give me the sense of peace and that everything is okay, and it just makes me appreciate the simpler things in life. The movies just really have a way of doing that. It's always just like this nostalgic, also kind of familiar feeling when I think about the movies. And I won't even get started and talk about the music in the movies because the music is incredible, and once I start talking about it, I cannot stop, so I won't even start. But if you've watched the movies, you definitely know what I mean. So this is just a fraction of the life lessons I have learned from the anime, and also just why anime are so much more than just Japanese cartoons, in my opinion. And I'd love to talk about all the other life lessons I learned from so many other anime, maybe in another video. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you a lot. I forgot. Comment down below your favorite life lesson you have from anime, movies, books, whatever. I'd be very interested in reading them and yeah, maybe just discuss with you. I hope that you had just as much fun watching this as I had making this video. I wish you a beautiful, beautiful rest of the day. Take care and I hope to see you soon. Bye!